Welcome to the Write the Damn Book Already podcast. My name is Elizabeth Lyons. I'm a 6-time author, and I help people write and publish powerful, thought-provoking nonfiction and memoir without any more overthinking, second-guessing, or overwhelm than absolutely necessary. Because let's face it, some overthinking, second-guessing, and overwhelm is going to come with the territory if you're anything like me. I believe that story and shared perspective is one of the most potent ways we connect with one another, and that your story, perspective, and insights are destined to become someone else's favorite resource. For more book writing, publishing, and how the heck do I move through this glitch tips and solutions, and plenty of free and low-cost resources, visit publishaprofitablebook.com. And for recommendations of fabulous books you've possibly never heard of, book writing inspiration, and the occasional meme so relatable you'll wonder if it was created with you in mind, follow me on Instagram at Elizabeth Lyons Author. Hi, everybody, and welcome to this episode of Write the Damn Book Already. This is a little bit of an unplanned one. In fact, it's not a little bit unplanned, it's completely unplanned, but I made a post yesterday on Instagram, and truth be told, I was absolutely terrified to hit post. I really like to keep things light and positive and optimistic, and I'm a big proponent of if you don't have anything nice to say, just don't say anything. So within this industry, the book publishing industry, and every other space that I've ever been in, entrepreneurship in general, jewelry design, leather making, like all the things that I've done, if I know that someone is what I would consider to be a bad actor in the space, I just don't comment. I don't need to call people out. I don't need to shine a light on bad behavior. And yet I have become increasingly frustrated over months, if not longer, because there's so much confusion in the space around hybrid/vanity publishing. In fact, in my episode with Kristen McGinnis, which will air next week, we chatted about this, and it was kind of funny because she even said, wait a minute, can we talk about the difference? Because everyone kind of understands vanity and hybrid differently. And I don't even know that the way I'm using them, I mean, even if you Google what is a vanity publisher, what is a hybrid publisher, you'll get different answers. But by and large, the consensus seems to be that hybrid publishing is fine. If it's done in an ethical way, if it's done by a reputable person or company, it can be a great option for authors who either aren't able to go traditional, don't want to go traditional, and don't want to do the legwork of self-publishing. There are a lot of great, reputable, amazing hybrid publishers out there. And as I said in a follow-up Instagram post, two that I can personally vouch for are Burning Soul Press, which is run by Lauren Eckhart, and Ascent Publishing, which is the hybrid arm of Rise Publishing, which is run by Kristen McGinnis. In both of those cases, people would pay money. I would pay money not just to have my book published by those imprints, but just to be in the energy of Lauren or Kristen as often as humanly possible, to benefit from their expertise and their insight, to have them lead me down the path based on their own experience, which is vast. Like that is a great aspect. That is the greatest aspect of hybrid publishing there is. Unfortunately, there's this other side, which I refer to and many people refer to as vanity publishing. Now, some people will confuse it and they'll refer to a hybrid publisher who's good as a vanity publisher. And that's why I just want to caution everyone, just because you hear the word vanity, go behind the curtain and make sure that they really are vanity. And on the flip side, just because you hear hybrid, go behind the curtain, because a lot of vanity publishers are coming out and calling themselves hybrid publishers when in actuality, what they are is a vanity publisher. And I have heard one would be enough, but I've heard one too many stories of authors who get truly taken by these vanity publishing houses because the houses know what words to use, they know what buzzwords to use, they know what keywords to drop, and they're preying upon very intelligent people who are simply not knowledgeable in the book space. And they're doing this for thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. Now, I want to be clear. The price tag isn't the red flag. There are hybrid publishers who charge upwards of $70,000, $80,000, even $100,000 a package. And it actually makes sense if you can afford that and if it makes sense with your business and where you're looking to go. Because the number of things that are included in that package, not just to be line items on the list, but because they are legitimate services that that company offers and they can follow through with delivering what they say that they can deliver, that makes that fine. And there are plenty of people who have invested at that level in a publishing package and are perfectly happy with the result. On the flip side, there are plenty of people who have invested that level or less in a publishing package and been extremely disappointed on the back end because it wasn't at all what it was sold to be. And sold is really the operative word. So with hesitation, because I didn't want to come off as negative, I didn't want to call anyone out. There's no need to do that. I just wanted to give some information based on my experience as to what authors should, and it's one of the few times I'll use the word should, ask and be looking into before making a decision about going with any hybrid publishing house. And I was also afraid that the argument could be made, well, Liz, you run a hybrid publishing house, so of course you're supporting those. To be clear, my publishing house almost, in fact, 100% of the time at this point, only publishes authors I either coach through the writing and or edit. I'm actually not open to mass submissions. I run my publishing house almost as a service to my authors because we've built a relationship. They trust me. They know that I know what I'm doing. And so instead of going and doing all the legwork themselves to self-publish, they'd rather just hire me to do it. And in those instances, because I know I can fully support their book, the content, the quality, the editing, all of that, I'm more than happy to help. But I'm not out just randomly taking submissions. A lot of hybrid publishers are, and that's not a bad thing. So I made the post, and it honestly, this is such a testament to if you really feel it in your soul that you want to say something, say something. Whether it's through a book, a post, an email, to the person behind you in line at the grocery store, whatever it is, if you feel, I thought I was going to explode. I needed to say something so badly. I just wanted it to come across the way I wanted it to come across. And of course, in book writing, we never know. It's one of the greatest concerns that people have, and it's completely understandable and justified. Is what I'm saying going to come across the way that I want it to come across? And the answer is, I don't know. We don't know. Because so much of what we take in, the way that we perceive it is based on where we are. If we've had a bad day, we may not catch the sarcasm. If we've had a great day, something that's snarky, we might find absolutely hilarious. So that's a piece of writing and of being creative that we just have to learn to let go of, because we can't control the way that someone else receives our words or our intention. The key is that we know what our intention is. So my intention in this was to alert one person to please not fall into this trap that I was seeing so many people fall into. And what's funny and ironic is that for as afraid as I was to post that, it has the highest engagement of any post I've ever posted that didn't have to do with like my dog or what I had for lunch or, I don't know, some insane thing I saw while driving down the road. That stuff, I'm like, why does that stuff get all the engagement? That has nothing to do with my business. But for the first time, I had something that I really was incredibly passionate about. And I did take the time to hone my words as best I could to make sure as best I could that they were well received. And then I just put it out there and it did its thing and it was well received. And that was great. Some of the comments I got though were, number one, yes, I've learned don't ever pay anyone to publish your book. Real publishers make their money off of sales. That I disagree with. I disagree with never pay anyone to publish your book. I think it's an incredibly viable option because look, the vast majority of people are not going to get a traditional publishing deal. And what that means is that there are thousands and thousands and thousands of incredible books and stories and messages that will never make it into the world to touch someone else if there isn't another viable option there. And the other options are hybrid publish or self-publish. Both are completely viable. You've just got to know how to do it or how to choose someone to do it for you. The second comment I got was, well, how do I know who to trust? So I wanted to do a podcast with the green flags, not the red flags, because again, I'm trying to keep it positive. So what are the green flags to look for in a hybrid publisher? And what are the yellow flags? Yellow flags meaning this will require a little bit more investigation on your part. It's not out of the gate a red flag like some things would be. So let's jump into this. The number one green flag for a reputable hybrid publisher that you are probably going to absolutely love working with is they don't contact you. I have never, ever heard of a reputable hybrid publisher who reaches out to an author and says, oh, we've heard about your book and we'd love to publish it. It just doesn't happen. So vanity publishers, one of the biggest signs across their forehead that they're a vanity publisher is they typically troll Facebook groups of authors. And when they learn that someone is getting ready to publish or is working on a book, they will immediately reach out via messenger, via email if they can find it, whatever option they have, and they will charm your pants off. They will say, oh my gosh, we heard about your book or we looked into your profile. We're so excited. You're so unique. You've got so much to say. We really want to get our hands on this and publish it. And it will only cost you fill in the blank. So I'm not going to go so far as to say that every single, because there are, of course, traditional publishers occasionally reach out to people, especially if you've gotten a big voice somewhere or something. It's still rather rare, but there are extremely small boutique traditional publishers who will occasionally reach out, but they're not asking you to pay them. So if you make it through step one where they've reached out to you, the next question is, what are they asking for? Are they looking to publish you or are they looking for you to pay them to publish you? Because if it is the latter, that is not a green flag. That is like the reddest flag there possibly is. The second green flag, they don't guarantee any kind of bestseller status. Anytime, no publisher on this planet, including Simon & Schuster, HarperCollins, Penguin Random House, none of them can guarantee best-selling status. Unless, they can get pretty close with something like Prince Harry's memoir or the newest Colleen Hoover or something by J.K. Rowling, provided she puts her name on it and doesn't do it under a pseudonym, which happened once, and she sold 1,000 copies of the book. And then when it was released that it was actually J.K. Rowling, it went all the way up to bestseller status immediately. But with those exceptions, even traditional houses, no one can guarantee best-selling status unless they are taking a really interesting shortcut to getting you there. And I can tell you, and I've said it before, but in case you haven't heard it, I'm going to tell you right now exactly what it is, because you can do it yourself without paying anyone. What you do is you put your book in a category, your ebook or your paper, it doesn't matter. You put your book on Amazon in a category that has either a low number of books in it and or a very low number of new releases happening. So with all the categories on Amazon, I can't even think of one right now to give you as an example, but something small where there isn't a new book being released terribly often. You put your book in that category. You run a bestseller campaign, which essentially means that you go out and you put the book at $1.99, your ebook. You ask a bunch of people to buy it on launch day. And now, look at you. You are the number one new release in fill in the blank. It could be a completely obscure category. You might have written about organic gardening and you put your book in the automotive category just because you knew that there weren't many books coming out. It does look a little weird, I'll add, when you go out and announce, I'm the number one new release in automotive repair and your book is about gardening. If people notice that, and lots of people do, for the record. But maybe you were able to generate that status in a relevant category. So say you're in a category that isn't ridiculously saturated, like happiness or motivation or entrepreneurship. Those are heavily saturated categories where you need to sell thousands of ebooks in order to hit number one. But even if you do, even if you've got a list that is big enough that you can get 1,000 people to buy your ebook on launch day for 99 cents or $1.99 or whatever, and you hit that bestseller category, you're going to be in it for 3 hours. That's it. So yes, you can say, oh, I'm a best-selling author. But again, it looks weird when someone goes out and looks at your book on Amazon and you have 3 reviews and you're now number 1,672,453 in all of the Amazon store. It just is off, and people notice that. And nowadays, so many people are touting that I'm a best-selling author. I'm a best-selling author. Nobody even knows who actually is a best-selling author. And there are New York Times best-selling authors who cannot pay their rent for real. Because as Juliana Baggett, who is an incredible writer, has spent decades and decades and decades in this space. Fun fact, she lived behind me when I was 3 years old, and that's how I originally know her. So I know her as Julie, who used to hang upside down on our rusty jungle gym in the backyard. But fast forward, and I was able to reconnect with her many years later. She's been in the industry, traditionally published. She's doing movies, all kinds of things. I mean, I don't know that I know of anyone personally more entrenched in the space than she is. And when I posted my 9 things I wish I had known before I wrote, 6 books, about 4 posts ago on Instagram, and it was on Facebook, she commented and she said, writing is prize fighter money. Sometimes you make it and then you've got to set it aside because you don't know when you're going to make it again. And most authors have a secondary source of income. Either it's a partner that, a spouse or a partner, or they have a second job or sometimes a third job. It's not something, it's like entrepreneurship. It is entrepreneurship. It is not something that is always solid, certainly not in the beginning. And so this bestseller status, what happens is people think that that is the key to riches. It is not. There are air quote best-selling authors who have only sold 2 books at $1.99 and they make 35% of that. So do the math. That is not a get-rich-quick scheme in my book. I mean, I've never found one, by the way, that actually works, but that ain't it. So here's the deal, though, with bestseller status. If that's your goal for some reason, is to just be able to say it, then okay. If that's what you're willing to invest your dollars in, to be able to say, I'm the best-selling author, I'm the number 1 new release in this category, or I am a best-selling author in this category, or I'm a New York Times best-selling author, you can invest the dollars in that. I believe the current rate to buy your way onto, hopefully it's never a guarantee, but the New York Times bestseller list is between $300,000 and $500,000. So if that's important to you and you want to do it, then do it. I'm not telling you not to do it. I'm saying know what it actually means. It does not bring loads of sales, loads of media, loads of speaking engagement opportunities in and of itself. It doesn't. So if a hybrid house if that's one of their crowning glories of their package is, look, our package is $15,000, $20,000, and we're going to guarantee you bestseller status, just know what that guarantee is and what it isn't. Green flag number 3, they have happy clients who you can talk to. So most reputable hybrid publishers are really proud of their authors and of their books. It is not hard to find a list of authors they've worked with and books they've worked on. And it shouldn't be hard, even just through social media, to reach out to those authors and say, hey, how was your experience with such and such publisher? What went as expected? What didn't go as expected? And I highly encourage you to do that for any prospective publisher with whom you are hoping to work or with whom you're talking about potentially signing a contract. The 4th green flag is in line with the 3rd. They come recommended by someone you trust. People ask often, well, how do I find a good editor? How do I find a good agent? One of the best things to do is to simply post on social media, I'm looking for an editor. This is the genre in which I've written. Does anybody have any recommendations? Because people who have worked with editors and love them will be so quick to say, oh, you've got to contact this person. They're so great. And then you can take it from there. Make sure it's someone you trust, because lots of times when you're in Facebook groups and you say, hey, can anybody recommend an editor? There's a little bit of nepotism that goes on. And again, this is not me being negative. This is me being honest and realistic, where sometimes people have affiliate relationships with people. Sometimes there are agreements made, like if you promote me for this, I'll promote you for this. And that's not necessarily, by the way, a bad thing. It's just that when it's someone you know and already trust, for them to give you the recommendation feels a million times better and a million times safer and a million times more secure. And then you can take it from there. Fifth green flag, your gut. Trust your gut. If something feels off, it might be. So just continue to ask more questions. One of the biggest not green flags is when a publisher is really warm and friendly with you until it starts to seem like you're questioning things. And then they don't have a lot of time to take your call. They don't have a lot of time to answer your question. You feel a little bit put off. And sometimes, again, very intelligent people start to feel like, well, that you get gaslit. It's like, well, am I the problem? Am I asking too many questions? Am I not knowledgeable enough? Am I wasting their time? I don't want to waste somebody's time. No. If you are investing in something, you have every right to get to a point where you feel completely comfortable. And if someone isn't willing to meet you in that space, they may just not be the right person for you. So trust your gut. All right, let's move into a couple yellow flags, because a lot of people will say right out of the gate, these are red flags, and I disagree. Number one, this is a yellow flag. They do it all, right? So they edit, they publish, they do your publicity. That is a yellow flag, and here's why. Sometimes hybrid publishers are great at that. So a great example of that would be Ascent Publishing with Kristen McGinnis. They edit, they are editor. They know what they are doing. They do not farm out your edits to someone overseas who they're paying a half a cent a word to and who is running it through Grammarly. This does not have to mean that they have these people on their staff, like they're W-2'd. They might very well be contractors, and in my opinion, that is 100% okay. The key is that they are people that they have experience with, they have worked with more than once, they have vetted them, they are confident in their skills, and they work with them and contract with them not because they are the cheapest, but because they are the right person. And they know they will do a good job working on a book. And that goes for editors, cover designers, interior formatters, and publicists. So if a hybrid house is able to partner with all of those people, even if they're not on staff, and they consider them their team, and they are all giving 100%, then that's a green flag. If, however, the house is saying, listen, we've got all these things we're going to do for you, and upon asking questions, you start to sense that everything's being farmed out to 99 Designs and Fiverr and people overseas and just the lowest possible price they can get for something. And the team, air quote, is changing constantly. So it's one cover designer for this, depending on who they can get. And it's one cover designer for that, depending on who they can get. That is a red flag. So I am all for one-stop shopping, believe me. But only if everything being offered is at the level that the author believes they're investing in and deserves. So when it comes to publicity, as an example, and I'm going to do a whole separate podcast on this, and I'm hoping to actually interview a book publicist, because it's really important to know what you're getting, what you should expect, what you shouldn't expect. I mean, look, every one of these flags I have fallen prey to. So when I first started publishing back in 2002, I went with what is, I don't know that they're I'm going to say they're vanity. And they're still around today. I'm not going to say who they are, but they're still around today. But I'll tell you this, I didn't know what I didn't know what I didn't know. So they probably didn't do anything wrong. I just didn't know what questions to ask. And I hired a publicist or two very early on where I got upset with the end result. And if I'm being fair, it wasn't their fault. It was because I didn't know what to ask And my expectations, I thought I was going to be on Jimmy Fallon, for God's sake. My expectations were not well set by me or by them. And so I've learned all this the hard way, and I just don't want other people to do the same thing. So one-stop shopping is great if everything comes together, if everybody is well chosen. And by the way, if everybody is well chosen and really good at their craft, that price point for the package is going to be higher. It has to be. Where I start to get real frustrated, like I said before, is when a hybrid house or a vanity house says we have all these people, we have this huge team, everybody knows what they're doing, and then come to find out, and I was on a call about 4 years ago with someone who ran a hybrid or ran a vanity house really, and she admitted that she was having her interiors formatted overseas for $35 a manuscript, and was turning around and charging the authors $3,000 and $4,000, essentially $1,000 for that service, which is completely insane, by the way. But the bottom line is the profit margin was completely out of line with what was actually being delivered, and not by someone who knows what they're doing. What a lot of people don't realize, even about traditional publishing, is the amount of investment that goes into producing a book is massive. So at the traditional level, these houses are taking on the cost of editing, design, production, printing, and distribution before a penny is made, and the advance, if they offer an advance. It's an incredible investment, and people just, especially outside of the space, but sometimes even inside the space, don't realize that when a book sells for $15.95, that is not profit. The profit on that is infinitesimal. And the number of books that have to sell in order for a traditional house to recoup their investment is sizable. And most books don't sell that much. So the traditional houses are counting on the Prince Harry's memoir and the Colleen Hoovers and the James Pattersons and the Brene Browns and the Gabby Bernsteins and all the proven books to kind of carry the load so that they can take a risk on some unproven authors. But when you're talking about a high price tag to hybrid publish, if everybody involved in that process is on their game, including the publicist, which I'm going to get back to in a second, then they deserve to be paid accordingly. Because again, you're investing upfront. It is no different from deciding whether or not to seek investors for your business or invest yourself in your business. They're both viable options. People do both every single day. And people are opposed to each of them all the time, and they can cite all their reasons for it. But they're both viable options. When you're making an investment in your business, you probably don't pay the guy on the corner who's kind of like, yeah, I think I know how to make boots. I mean, we can probably figure it out. It'll be 30 grand, but let's get started tomorrow. And that's what I'm trying to move everyone away from here. So with publicity, it's a very foggy area. And again, I'm going to do a separate, because it's a show in and of itself. It's a topic in and of itself. So we'll do something different on that. But sometimes when publicity is included, that's great. And other times it's not. So that whole area is yellow flag, ask more questions. Another yellow flag is, do you take royalties off the back end? So if I am paying someone to publish my book, if I'm investing a specific amount of money for someone to do a professional job of publishing my book and helping me navigate the process, holding my hand through the process, I'm paying them because they know what they're doing. I don't. Obviously, I'm speaking facetiously because I publish books. But if I'm doing that, I want to know, okay, if you're going to take my money up front and you're going to take a percentage off the back end in sales, how much are you taking and what are you doing to earn that money on the back end? And this is why it's a yellow flag, because for some hybrid houses, and this is another green flag, they vet manuscripts. So vanity houses will take anything that comes across their desk. If you write a 12-word, horrible iambic pentameter, they'll be like, this is amazing. We're going to publish this. That'll be $15,000. A hybrid publisher vets. They want to feel a connection to the authors, to the book, to the message, to the story. Like Kristen McGinnis's new publishing house, Rise Publishing, it's all about activism. Their traditionally published authors are all in the activist space. And then they talk to different people about hybrid publishing, but they still vet all of that. They're not just publishing anything. So if a publisher contacts you, number one, not green flag. So number one, red flag. And number two, if they don't even need to review your manuscript and tell you what their thoughts are on it, that's not a green flag. When we're talking about reputable hybrid publishers who have vetted manuscripts and are saying, yes, we believe in this, we would be willing to partner with you, put our name on it, put it out to market and whatever else we do. In some cases, they are doing things number one, in some cases, they're charging less upfront because they believe in the book, they believe in the author, and they're hoping that they're going to make 10 or 20% off the back end. Sometimes they are doing legwork on the back end, like distribution, like publicity, etc., and they're looking to cover those costs by charging you not on the front end, but on the back end. So they're crossing their fingers that your book will be received as well as they believe it will, and that you'll do your job of marketing and outreach and whatever you can do to help sell the book, because the onus will never fall entirely or even the majority on the publishing house to do the marketing. So if they take a percentage off the back end, it's not a red flag. You just want to ask about it. You want to ask, how much do you take? What are you doing on the back end that makes that, or on the front end, that makes that fair? How often do you pay out royalties? And how often do I get statements that let me know how many books have sold, how many have been returned, if that's the case, what my ledger, what does my ledger look like? Okay, this is an orange flag. They want subsidiary rights without compensating you for them. So subsidiary rights are like translation rights, film rights, audiobook rights. In most cases in the traditional world, those are not automatically sold. So print rights are sold, but then everything else is kind of up for negotiation, even in the traditional world. So in the hybrid world, if someone wants audiobook translation and film rights without compensating you for them, that's a red flag. I actually, in the hybrid world, wouldn't even have those in a contract. And this is just me speaking, because you don't know what's going to happen necessarily to that hybrid publisher. So I think that authors should have the ability to negotiate their own translation rights, their own audiobook rights. If it comes to it, their own film, Netflix, TV, whatever rights, commercial rights. If it comes down to that, I would absolutely make sure you're reading the fine print of your contracts and making sure that those subsidiary rights are not in there without your knowledge. I have worked with authors whose, air quote, publishing houses did have in the fine print that they had the rights to translations and audiobook. And then all of a sudden the translations were out. The audiobook was out, having not been narrated, obviously, by the author. And the author was being compensated $0 for all of it. $0. So that's something that you've got to review your contract and your agreement. And this is really also an orange flag, is they explain their process and their extras. When they do explain it, they say things that are really vague, like, we know people. Like, we can make this happen, we know people. Who are the people? So someone commented yesterday, and I don't laugh because it's funny. It's just, someone commented on the Instagram post yesterday that she worked with a publisher who basically said this, like, we know people in the PR world. And it turned out that who they knew was PR Newswire, which is a service I or you or anyone else can go out and pay for right now for, $100, $200, $300, depending on the package you purchase. It's a press release service, and press releases oftentimes go right into the ether. They're not even read. I mean, folks in the media are getting thousands of press releases every single day. So if yours is not related to a major story or a major celebrity or something else major, it is not being paid attention to. So when people say, well, we know people or we have connections, I can't really tell you who the connections are, but I have connections. In that instance, like, you want to get a bit more information. I hope this has been helpful. I absolutely welcome your feedback, your thoughts, and certainly your questions. You can message me anytime on Instagram. I'm at Elizabeth Lyons Author. You can also email me anytime at elizabeth@elizabethlyons.com. Next week, I am bringing you an interview with the incredible Kristen McGinnis, who I talked about multiple times in this episode. I promise you're going to love her. She is absolutely delightful. She's a wealth of information, super fun and warm, and just another person that you want by your side and on your side as you're navigating this publishing journey. So just get back to writing, get back to publishing, get back to marketing. It's a crazy space, but you know what? We have a lot of fun here, and there are so many. Books are life. Let them never stop being written. Let them never stop being published. Let them never stop being discovered. Because every day, I swear, I discover a new book, a new author, a new message, a new way of saying something, and a new way of looking at the world and at myself. And I'm incredibly grateful for all of it. Thanks so much for being here, and I'll talk to you again next week. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode, this is your friendly reminder to follow or subscribe, leave a quick review, and share it with someone you know has a great story or message, but isn't sure what to do next. Also, remember to check out publishaprofitablebook.com for book writing resources and tips, and to see all the ways we can work together to get your book out into the world. Again, thanks so much for listening, and I'll talk with you again soon.